Somehow, all these musicians, you just can't not clap. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Barb Reisner, and on behalf of Carol's family, I'd like to thank you all for coming today to celebrate and honor a life and a spirit that touched every single person in this room, a life that we are all going to miss. Know that your presence today here really matters. 50 years ago, Carol Tarr became my cello instructor. 50 years ago. And my lifelong mentor. Her impact in cello in the Suzuki world has been so significant that each of these cellists in front of you today asked to have the honor to play, to return the gift of music that she gave to each one of them. And take it from me. Ooh, that's okay. Now you hear me. Do you want me to start over? No. And take it from me. When Carol chose to give you the gift of music, it was a force. Carol was responsible for mentoring each one of these cellists, but also so many other musicians, teachers, and lifelong learners. In honor of her legacy in life this morning, we will share memories of that life and the music that she loved. Carol was passionate about cello ensemble, in case you didn't know. We may just have created the most dedicated impromptu cello ensemble ever, as in we rehearsed before this morning, are going to start us off today with two beautiful songs.
Was it something I said? I grew up listening to many cello lessons, and they weren't always as beautiful as that was. So that was lovely to hear. It's kind of see the culmination of all the work that my mom did and what you've done with her teaching. So thank you for that. I also want to thank, on behalf of my family, Barb, for stepping up and being the MC and organizing the wonderful cello ensemble and working with the church. I also want to thank Nancy Marble, who is playing there. She's been helping Barb take care of Mom's music, which has been a great concern for me, to what to do with that music. I want to thank my cousins, Stephanie and Carol Ann and Peter, for organizing the programs and the flowers and the food, and friend of the family, Mikey, for organizing the memory box. Without you, this would not have been possible. So thank you so much. I want to thank all of you for being here so that I can learn a different side of my mom. I inherited some of her grit and some of her discipline and, unfortunately, some of her temperament. So when we played music together, it didn't always end in being so nice. There were harsh words exchanged sometimes. And I imagine, as most sons, you have a certain view of your mother, and that's the way you see the world. And one day I was in her studio helping her organize things, and I found a little letter that a student had written, and it was a handwritten letter. Can you imagine that? You know, they write with a pen. And the beauty of that letter was incredible. They're thanking Mom for her cello lessons. And I thought, wow, that was, I mean, it really touched me. And then as we went on, other forms of appreciation kind of showed up. And then when Mom passed, the comments on the Facebook were just overwhelmingly gorgeous and beautiful. So I thank you all for that, and those who are not here. What I wanted to talk about was that Mom did a great many things, but it wasn't always that easy for her. When she graduated from the University of Southern California, and she was offered a position in the Los Angeles Philharmonic by Zubin Mehta. She turned it down and followed my father out to Washington, D.C. So I'm glad, for my sake, I'm glad she did that. But think of that. She turned down a position in the Los Angeles Philharmonic. At that time, it was the early 60s. That's what women did, right? They followed their husbands or husbands-to-be wherever they went. So they went to Washington, and Mom started a master's degree at the Peabody Institute of Music. And she had the additional challenge of bearing and raising me. And she related to me at some point later in life that was a difficult time for her because she was far away from family. Her study comrades, the fellow students, didn't have children. They were child-free. And Dad worked long hours there. After 3 years, Dad got a position in England to teach for 2 years. So we moved there. And while she was there, I think she didn't start teaching so much, and she was able to play chamber music and take lessons with a famous cellist named Christopher Bunting. But even that wasn't that easy for her. Her father died suddenly on his retirement trip on the way to England, in fact, to see them. And she gave birth to my brother, which happened very close, and that was hard for her. Then we moved to Janesville, Wisconsin, where my dad took a position teaching at the University of Wisconsin. And there she began building up a studio with piano and cello students. She also was able to play in several symphony orchestras, and there were chamber music parties at our house that would go late into the night. And from those, she had lifelong friends. and she also loved to play. And then you may see a pattern here. My dad got another job, and we moved here to Lakewood, where she began building up a studio again. And she was teaching piano as well in the beginning, and I can remember coming home hearing the song Feelings. Most of you are probably not old enough to know that song, but I still hear that song in my head on the piano. She related to me at some point. She was very glad that when she had enough cello students, she could stop teaching piano. She really loved teaching cello. She was also a fine pianist, I must say. She accompanied me on many, and she was quite a capable pianist. So while we were here in Colorado, she became a teacher trainer, Suzuki teacher trainer. She helped the Suzuki Association of Americas grow. She co-founded the Denver Talent Education. So she did a great many things here, and of course teaching privately. And then there were the summer institutes. Some of you know of those. She loved, I think, to go to those summer institutes. And I think it was a time when she could go and just focus on teaching and be together with her friends and colleagues. And I knew they discussed pedagogy late into the night and probably other things. And every summer we would see her loaded down with a cello in a hard case that you could take on the plane, a big suitcase filled with clothes and music in a computer bag. And I don't know how that little frame was able to carry all that, but she did. So I just, I'm so thankful that you're here, and I'm really looking forward to hearing your stories and remembrances so that I can have a more complete picture of my mom. So thank you all.
This is Mara, and Mara is thrilled to play for you today. And I believe Mara was Carol's youngest student. Yes.
My name is Pam Brosh. I was a parent in Carol's studio and was the administrator of several programs in which Carol was involved. I'm also a Suzuki grandparent, and I'm reading today a remembrance by Heather Griss, Suzuki parent, violin teacher, and Carol's colleague and friend. We'll also be hearing from Heather's daughter just shortly. I have known Carol since I was a child when she taught my younger brother and taught group classes with my violin teacher. In the fall of 1998, I began my master's degree at the University of Denver and met Carol again as I took my Suzuki training. About the same time, I began teaching with Denver Talent Education and later became the co-director and then the director. In reality, Carol was the artistic director, and the rest of us took her vision and worked out all the administrative details. Familiar. We worked closely together throughout those years. Some people have asked me how I could work so closely with Carol. I don't think it's a secret that she could be a little or a lot snippy at times. I grew to know that Carol always had the student's best interest at heart, and those snips happened when she was advocating for a student or a program or a philosophy that she really cared about. She always knew when maybe she'd gone too far, and she would call to apologize later. I so appreciated her care and sincerity in that regard. And then in 2008, when Hannah was just a baby, I started talking to Carol about teaching Hannah. When Hannah turned 3, Rick and Carol came over to give her the foam and wood cello that Rick had made for her. It was complete with a magic wand bow. She had such incredible patience with Hannah. You may not be able to see it now, but Hannah was not the most cooperative student Carol had ever had. And Carol could definitely sense my tension when lessons were not going well. But she managed us with love and grace and would call later in the week to remind me that it was okay. This was the process and that she had a new idea for the next lesson. If you ever worked with Carol, you know that she was an idea machine. She loved pondering a teaching problem and coming up with an idea. She often went to great lengths to help to find a teaching tool for the sake of a single child. And Rick often got pulled into this process. And she certainly won Hannah over eventually. As a teacher, she was so wonderful in seeking to understand the whole child. It was never just about the cello. Thank goodness, or the day that Hannah's end pen scratched the face of Carol's cello would have been the very last day of lessons for us. Carol's bookshelves were not just filled with books about music and cello, but with books about child psychology, family dynamics, the newest research on early childhood education, and the mindset of honing a craft. Her ideas were actually the fruit of a wealth of knowledge and research. She was a lifelong learner and would never stop until every child had been reached. I once heard Rick say, years ago, that Carol would die in the saddle, and I'm so glad she did. There was always someone to teach, someone to reach, someone who needed her until the very last day. Her legacy lives in the hearts of many teachers around the world who continue her work of teaching and advocating for every child. I've lost a friend, an advisor, and my daughter's fiercest advocate and cheerleader. I miss all of those parts of my relationship with Carol. I'm deeply grateful for the many facets of my own teaching that I gleaned from her, the incredible gift that she gave to Hannah, and the loyal friends that she was to me through so many stages of my life.
Just give me a second here. Okay. Is this all right? You can hear me? Okay, thank you. My name is Blake Brosh, and I'm a cellist and teacher at the Hart School in Connecticut, and I became a student of Carol's in 1981. My earliest memory of Carol was when I was 9 years old, and I played Handel Bourret on a studio recital at Rockley's Music Center on West Colfax. My family had very recently moved here from Illinois, and everything that comes with a move was true. New teachers, new school. It was exciting, but a little lonely. I do not remember my performance of Bourret, but I remember her smile, the big hug, and the words of encouragement that she gave me afterwards. I was her student for 8 more years, and then I was her former student. Then I was her student again in teacher training, and eventually I was a fellow teacher and former student. Throughout my time as a student and former student, as Heather mentioned regarding Hannah, Carol was my best advocate. She played an active role in many of the significant moments in my life, some cellistic and some not. She helped me choose my first cello and bow from Preers, and many years later drove me from Cleveland to the Weaver's Violin Shop in Maryland to help me find my next upgrade cello. She got me into college and took care of me when I fell ill my first year. She persuaded Joanne Bath to hire me for my first institute job in North Carolina and hired me herself to teach at the Rocky Mountain Cello Camp for multiple years. To help tell a particular story of how Carol played an active role in my life, a story which highlights a favorite pastime of hers, which John didn't mention, matchmaking. It's time for a Reagan cameo.
Hi. Oh, I am very short. Okay, hold on. Okay. All right. I was in Carol's music theory pedagogy class, and one day she was showing us all of her giant stash of duet books, and she picks up this one and looks at the cover and says, "Oh, look, it's Reagan and Blake." If you can't see it, there's like a little red-headed violinist playing with a brown-haired cellist. I turned beet red because I had no idea she knew I had a crush on him, but of course she did.
The following summer, I was teaching at Stevens Point Suzuki Institute, and Reagan was taking training again. Carol came up to me and said, paraphrasing a bit, "I'm going to dinner with Scott Walker and some other people. You need to come out with us." Sorry.
And then Carol called me, and then she said, "You should come out with Scott Walker and some other people."
As far as Carol was concerned, she set us up. She was Cupid. After that dinner, we dated and married because of her efforts. We never told her that we had already made plans to go to dinner and a movie before she decided we needed to go to dinner with Scott Walker. Carol never hesitated to share her opinions with me and sometimes of me. Everything is happening on Facebook, she said when I told her I'm not on Facebook. I have yet to accept that argument. "Why are you torturing your students?" she asked after watching a student of mine perform the Marcello Adagio from Book 4 with fingerings appropriate for a professional. In this case, she was 100% correct. That student is now 5 years older than I was when I assigned him those torturous fingerings and claims to have forgiven me. Okay. A lot of good things. This was the best response I could hope for in my lessons with Carol. After she listened to me play through whatever I was working on, and it was the prelude to whatever she felt I needed to work on. Okay, a lot of good things. In the early 1980s, Carol was named a member of the SAA Cello Committee, a long-standing committee tasked with the development and eventual revisions of the Suzuki cello repertoire. While revising the books, the many opinions about the bowings, fingerings, and performance practices of Bach were preventing the committee from agreeing on a single editing. Cellists. The solution was proposed, I do not know by whom, that the solo suites be removed from the repertoire. Carol did not like this. I witnessed how much this upset Carol in a cello teachers meeting at a leadership retreat in the early 2000s. She spoke passionately about the need for the solo suites to remain in the repertoire. Paraphrasing a bit, she said, "These are treasures of our repertoire, and they will not be taught if they are not included in the books and on the recordings." Her opinion never wavered. Sometime in the last few years, I recall an online meeting of teachers where she again asked that the missing Bach movements be returned to the repertoire. As my teacher, she found ways to nurture my own understanding and eventual passion for Bach. Some were more subtle than others. She was never dogmatic in lessons about how Bach was to be played, but she did have certain limits. Early in my study of the solo suites, I was listening exclusively to the iconic recordings by Pablo Casals. I recall sitting in her basement studio on West 4th, before she was Mrs. Tarr on South Carr. After playing the G minor minuet, Carol said, and this is verbatim, not paraphrased, "Okay, a lot of good things. I'm going to say what my teacher said to me. When you're as old as Casals, you can play as slow as him." She later gave me a recording of a different cellist playing the Bach suites with the words, "Listen to this. It is good to hear something other than Casals." Around that same time, Carol arranged for me and 2 other students to play Allegro Moderato from Book 3 in an ensemble form. For those unfamiliar with the piece, this arrangement of the Gamba Sonata by Bach takes each of the keyboard lines and gives them to a cellist. The third part is the Book 3 solo part, which I had finally polished. Sitting in a room at Rockley's, with all the voices played by a cello, I remember feeling amazed by the beautiful imitation and counterpoint that I had somehow missed listening to the Suzuki recording with piano. As when she gave me the recording of the solo suites, this was an example of Carol's best teaching. She designed a means for me to discover the essence of Bach on my own. As Heather said in her remembrance, she had found what worked for me in that moment. Each of the many times I teach that piece, I've recalled that feeling of amazement. When I work with groups of cello students on ensemble pieces, I think of the many cello ensemble experiences she provided me. In lessons, I listen to my students play through their entire pieces, honoring their efforts with patience, and making sure they know the many good things they did. And when they play Bach, I make sure they do not play too slowly.
Oh, you have another one, excuse me.
Okay, that was hard to follow. Living in Wisconsin in the 1970s gave Carol the opportunity to participate in the growth of the Suzuki method that was taking place throughout the Midwest. She took Suzuki training and witnessed early developments in the Suzuki cello method. When Carol moved to Colorado in 1976, she was the only Suzuki cello teacher, and she remained the only one for close to a decade. She took further training and began to teach more widely at institutes and workshops throughout North America, and in '83, she was designated teacher trainer for the SAA. Throughout her career, she participated in every possible Suzuki event and activity in Colorado, and at the national level as well. Some of those events were remembered fondly by Carol and me. Carol especially loved to reminisce about the Rocky Mountain Chamber Music Camp, a summer event that she and James Maurer directed. Our faculty our facility limited us to about 36 students, aged 10 to 18, plus a few teacher training participants. It was held in Estes Park area in a somewhat rustic facility with the Rocky Mountain National Park as the backdrop. As directors, Carol and Jim did a fabulous job of hiring the best possible guest teachers, conductors, and coaches. Jim and Barbara Barber, Hiroko Primrose, Rich Slavic, David Lockington, and many others. One summer, Suzuki pioneer John Kendall was a featured clinician. Carol loved introducing students to chamber music. She recruited students from Colorado, Utah, Texas, Montana, California, all the places where she had made connections with colleagues. Activities were outdoors wherever possible, and there was no shortage of fun, hiking, games, skits. Carol truly cherished the many fun memories of the summer chamber camp events. I think we had some Maurer sons as helping with those events. Right? Counselors? Yep. Moving forward about 20 years and passing through many other cherished memories, we come to Carol's pedagogy teaching career at the University of Denver. Carol was so very proud of establishing the Suzuki Pedagogy Long-Term Teacher Training for cello at DU's Lamont School of Music. It was established in 2006. There are actually very few degree-granting Suzuki pedagogy programs for cello, so it is unique. Alongside the violin pedagogy program, established in the late 70s by James Maurer, the program represents the long and growing history of Suzuki accomplishments in Colorado, of which Carol played a major part. Carol cherished the training program, supporting and building it until her retirement in 2016. She was proud to see it continue successfully under the able direction of Heather Hadley. Jim Maurer shared this memory of Carol. Carol loved the children. She was passionate about giving them skills to prepare for life, concentration, focus, cooperation, and the appreciation of beauty in all of the arts. She especially loved teaching adults how to work with children. In the 2007 to 2015 span of time, a new Suzuki Association course was developed and launched, Suzuki Philosophy in Action, or SPA for short. Carol was a member of the SPA committee that developed the course. Unlike Suzuki unit courses, SPA doesn't focus on how to teach the repertoire. It focuses on how to teach, the qualities and characteristics that define good Suzuki teaching. The course covers concepts that were very important to Carol. She really enjoyed working on the SPA committee, and she loved teaching that new course. I've reflected on what made Carol so successful in so many endeavors. I think part of it was her listening skills, her problem-solving skills, and her skill at setting up connections between others, as we've heard. She had a gift of listening very deeply, thoughtfully, without interruptions, questions, or impromptu suggestions. She seemed to gather empathy through listening. Then she diverted empathy into action. She thought the matter over. We all know that she thought all the time about students, colleagues, friends, and family. And then sometime later, sometimes many days later, she came back with solutions, ideas, and suggestions. It's truly a gift to listen deeply and work out solutions, much as what Heather described earlier. It's a gift that made her a good friend, a great friend, and an outstanding teacher. It was this gift that I experienced in the early spring of 1981 when we first met for Blake's cello lessons. We had just moved with our three young children from Evanston, Illinois to Boulder, Colorado. She recalled her move from nearby Wisconsin, listened to all my concerns, empathized, offered concrete solutions and connections that could help us smooth out our transition. I'm sure many of you had similar experience with Carol. That cycle of listening and helping continued for the 45 years of our friendship. We reached out to one of Carol's Institute course participants, Mary Walters, who shared a memory of Carol. It will be read by Mary's good friend, Reagan Brosh.
I met Carol when I took Book 2 and 3 cello teacher training with her in the summer of 2002 at Chicago Suzuki Institute. I had finished my first year of teaching at the Music Institute of Chicago, where I was lucky enough to be mentored as a new by Gilda Barston, and had made a rare instant friendship with Blake and Reagan. That's me. I observed Carol's sense of humor in her teaching, as well as her kind and clear expectations in her classes. During our one-on-one consultation at the end of CSI, she congratulated me and said I clearly had a bright future working for the vibrant MIC cello community, and I was lucky to have such good friends in my life. All of these things were true, but I hadn't had the courage to tell anyone that I'd secretly been hoping to move back to Seattle. I confessed this to Carol in this meeting, and she immediately pivoted from reflecting on my excellent circumstances and brightly said, "Oh, you can absolutely do that. They need more teachers there. And Barbara Balaterlo is taking training this week. She's the cornerstone of the Suzuki Cello Committee. You need to meet her." Without her encouragement, I may not have had the courage to move back home. My entire family owes Carol a debt of gratitude for helping me get back to the Pacific Northwest. I tried to thank her every time I saw her after those teacher training courses for the gentle push she gave me in the right direction.
Just a little bit more. In February of 2021, Carol asked me to come to visit her at her condo in Anacortes, Washington. She said, "You need to do this. You need to see the area." She wanted me to see the island, the daffodils and the flower farms, the scenic views, and places that brought back memories. I will always fondly remember those few days together. On October 28, 2025, Carol and I went for lunch at a new place, Fire and Vine, a lovely new Italian place in Lakewood, a big step up from our usual lunch spots. And she said, "I want to support these people, this new place." I picked her up at home, and when she got into the car, the very first thing she said was, "Andrew and Sarah are going to have a baby in January." That was her proud moment. Sadly, it was the last of many lunches together.
We're now going to hear from another of Carol's students. This is Hannah Gruis.
My name is Nancy Marble, and I was Carol's friend. She was also my teacher. I never was officially her student, but I learned from her literally every day. She was my life mentor and my cello teacher mentor, and I loved her very much. I remember Carol most for her easy and contagious laugh. I loved her most for her ability to connect deeply with people, as we've heard today. I admired her for her immense love of teaching and equal love of learning. Carol was either directly teaching or was thinking about how best to teach. She was constantly pursuing new knowledge of all kinds. She belonged to several online teacher groups. She was always involved with the book club and took advantage of conferences and classes. I quickly learned that we could not go to conferences together. So, same. I enjoy talking to people at conferences. Carol likes to go to classes. So she never let me forget about this one 8 o'clock morning class that I didn't make it to about Boeings. She never let me forget about that. She never said, "How dare you not make it?" She just told me how great that class was. I was lucky enough to talk to Carol nearly every day. She would tell me about her interactions with her students, and I would tell her about mine. I would present to her issues that my students were currently having, and she would, like Pam has said so many times, would spend a day or two thinking about the best approach for my student. And she would always get back to me with the most thoughtful and kindest approach for my students. She was also be sure to tell me when my perspective was wrong. I miss our conversations most of all. It was a joy to watch her work with children. I want to read you a little statement that I found in a box of Carol's music. As some of you know, Carol loved stories, children's stories, and folk tales especially. And she loved telling stories with her cello. She had several compositions arranged just for her so that she would go out to the schools or anywhere, and she would perform these stories. And so here is something, this is Carol's own words about the why of all of it. Most young children are loving, open, joyful creatures. And when I tell stories to them, I always get back more than I give. Just for sharing stories, I see expressive, happy faces and eyes full of wonder. I hear voices chanting a chorus of song or giggling, barking, meowing, and clucking in unison with me. Together, we create a joyful storytelling experience. The young child often lives in a world of make-believe, so he or she slips easily into the narrated story. The child readily identifies with the characters, experiences the adventure, and absorbs the meaning. Children intuitively know that the story can help them learn about themselves and understand the world around them. Stories encourage the development of feelings and empathy and speak to the inner child. Stories are heard by the brain, but felt by the heart. The children always ask for more. The world is filled with story. Everywhere and throughout time, there has been a cacophony of stories, perpetual pouring forth as if a celestial fountain. God made man, said Elie Wiesel, because he loves stories. And I just really enjoyed that. I felt like that speaks the why that Carol worked so hard, because she believed in children and she believed in stories. So thank you for sharing today.
You may be wondering, rightly so, what on earth is he doing up here with the trombone? I was deliberating whether to play or not, and Barb encouraged me, so you can blame her. I only did this because one day after my father died, we were planning his service, and I was practicing. I was going to play this piece for a solo with a big band in Sweden, and she came down to me and said, "Couldn't you play that at Dad's service?" Now, it wasn't often that she came and said, "Could you play something?" So I think she liked this song, and I wanted to dedicate it to her.
Hi. That made me cry. I just sort of have a smattering of thoughts and things I just wanted to share. Those who know me won't be surprised. It's not very organized, but just as John talked about the challenges of moving and having children and changing careers and all of that. And I just, Mom was born in Helena, Montana, and she was this bookworm, and a cellist, and I think she was kind of out of place, in a sense, in Montana, and went off to USC to study music as soon as she could. And she came from a long line of teachers and music teachers. Her mother, Virginia Carlson, taught violin, and her grandmother, Preshie, I believe, played. Anyway, cousins and aunts, and there was just, music was part of it was just part of what you did, music and teaching. And her grandmother came up the Missouri in 1886 on a steamboat with her sister to Fort Benton, Montana, and landed there and made a life for themselves. And so there's a very rich Western heritage. Cousin Bill Cowan, Mom used to say proudly, has the second largest cattle ranch in the world, or something like that. And so just placing Mom in that, coming out of there, and with this huge desire to play music, and this need to think about people, and to teach, and to think about kids, and to think about kind of this becoming a Suzuki teacher. I mean, I think of that as this very kind of one of the Suzuki is one of those 20th century people, probably in part responding to World War II, and trying to raise the vibration of the world and prevent more atrocities. And so she just was always moving in that direction, and worked so hard. And as people have said, just would, might not say very much to you in the moment, or what she said was not very pleasant, but then she would be thinking about you for the next 2 weeks, and she would have a connection or an answer, and would bring it forth. So she cared deeply. Just a story she told once. She loved eating fish, and I remember as a kid she was trying to get me to eat more fish, and she would say, "Fish is brain food," And it turns out that's true. And she had some cousins. They were trout fishing, and they caught fish, and they thought they were going to play a joke on her. They told her that eating the head and the eyes was the best part of the fish, so they served it to her, and she loved it. They didn't win on that one. She just literally loved fresh fish. Another story, debated whether to tell this one. It sounds really bad, but cousin Tina will remember this too. We were having a dinner. This is a few years ago, and Tina asked, asked everyone at the table, what's a secret? What's something you don't tell people? And everyone went around, I had a speeding ticket and didn't tell you, or all these little stories, and of course Mom's sitting there, mouth pursed, lips pursed, and wasn't saying anything. And I was starting to piss me off. Like, come on, Mom, what's a secret? Like, she's never spoken like that. And she said, well, we were, when she was a kid, and with her cousin Bill, they were mad at one of their friends or cousins, and so they decided to hang him. And they actually tied a rope on a tree. And of course they were kids, right? It wasn't, but I mean, just again, it was just like way out of left field. Like, oh my God, like maybe there's a reason she doesn't speak up, but. But yeah, I've been reflecting on her growing up in Montana, and ranches and cattle, and Helena, Montana, and just coming out of that milieu, and going on to do what she did. Other memories are also those chamber music parties. I remember as a kid just loving, falling asleep in Jamesville, Wisconsin, and they're playing chamber music, and they're drinking wine, and there was all kinds of laughter and amazing music, and it was an amazing thing to fall asleep to on what felt like frequent nights. And it's also said that when I was in the crib in England, and I could kind of stand, and she'd be practicing cello, I would be I would be doing little squats to the beat of the music. So, and others have talked about this, but Mom was really a connector. She connected people, she connected ideas. She could, and that was just always going on. Matchmaker, and that was true of family and cousins and get-togethers. She made sure that those things happened and made sure we wrote Christmas cards or thank you notes, and it's nice to hear everyone. John talked about there's other there's a side of her with her teaching and everything that in some ways we didn't see as a mother, but the same sharp tongue and criticism and difficulty, being held at the same time with this great love and need to connect, and that was true for all of us. I'll just say, she, we were kind of amazed at how, in a way, how long she kept living. She never exercised, ever. Like, ever. I mean, I think she had a 20-year period where she didn't go to the doctor. But teaching music and playing music, and she read at least a book a week. And we have notebooks, and she took notes about all of these books. And so when she passed, it was in many ways unexpected. She got up to go to the bathroom and perhaps had a heart event. So an amazing way to go in her house. When I got the news, I first called John, and then I called Nancy Marble, and I said, Nancy, this happened. Can you help me cancel her lessons? Because she had lessons planned. She was part of an online Russian literature reading group, and on the table was her laptop and a Russian book and an extra article about that author. She was ready to participate in that. So she just kept going, kept learning. Remarkable. Of course she did, and then it was a surprise for Sarah and I to get pregnant at our age and given birth to Oliver Tarr, who was 5 months old today or yesterday, and he will be when we're heading to lunch. I think Sarah's going to bring him around, so some of you can meet him. Lovely little boy, again, kind of true to Mom's way. She didn't have a ton to say about the pregnancy. Of course, she was worried with our age and everything. Like, is this is this going to go through, and all of that. But she was, of course, thinking about it, and she had already contracted with Nancy to make him a baby blanket for the shower, which was should be held 4 days after she passed away. So we have that, and I wish she could have met him. So, and just want to say thank you for everyone who's here. It's incredible to see faces and old friends and acquaintances in the community. It means a lot. Thank you so much.
So our cello ensemble is going to come back up right now. And I think someone took my notes. Must be a broche person, maybe. Carol absolutely loved, as almost every cellist does, Song of the Birds. Pablo Casals, who himself was a Catalonian, discovered this beautiful melody as a young man or a young child, and he really felt a deep connection to its lyricism, to its emotional depth. And he, after his self-exile in 1939, he began each of his concerts by playing Song of the Birds. And he played it when he was awarded the UN Peace Medal. So for these reasons, it's considered a symbol of Catalonia, and the cellists of the world embrace this song. And the cello ensemble invites you right now to sit back, and while you listen, take a little time to reflect on all we've heard today about Carol and her life. Katie, that was really lovely, all of you. Thank you so much. Not to leave on a sad note, we have, the family really wants to thank each of you for coming today to honor and to celebrate Carol's incredible life. I'm sure that every person here today has some memory of Carol that makes them smile, or not. The family and sorry, that was for John and Andrew. The family invites you to join them in the parish hall, which I'm not sure if we go, I think down this hallway, yeah, this hallway right here. And there is a lunch and a chance to share your memories. If you would like to do it, there's some cards on the table. You can share a memory or a story. And I also hear there's a microphone, possibly. Karaoke, whatever, yeah, okay. So the cello ensemble, we thought it would be really nice to end with what every Suzuki cellist should end with, which is a French folk song.